Hi guys, welcome back to Amro Azul TV. Today I'm going to do a review of Masstick fish food with a focus on how to prepare the food and some pros and cons of using it. Alright, so this product, Masstick Reef Food, has been on the market for a while. The food comes as a powder, and essentially this powder is freeze-dried crustaceans. So it's mostly developed for a carnivore diet. It is sold in several quantities. I bought the 42-gram quantity, and it comes in 3 Ziploc baggies. I'll show you in a sec what they look like. And so when you receive the package, you will get 3 Ziploc baggies. Each one of them contains 14 grams of the product. And the product is stable when it's dry as a powder, and to actually turn it into food, you have to mix some RODI water in the little Ziploc baggies, and you have to manually kind of form it into a paste. There are some instructions on the package on how much water you need to add per gram, and it's 1 ml per 2 grams. So for a 14-gram Ziploc baggie, you have to add in 7 mils of RODI. Now, you have to use RODI. You're not meant to use salt water, because if you add in salt water, then you're not just adding in water, you're adding in some bacteria, and that could actually reduce the shelf life of the food. So here I'm going to add 7 mils of water to the Ziploc baggie, and you close the Ziploc baggie, and this is where the fun starts. You actually have to manually mix it together, and that process takes a bit of time. So it actually for me, it took about 5 minutes to complete that step. You're trying to kind of get a nice pasty consistency. You don't want it to be too runny. I found that sometimes I have to add in just a little bit more water, just a squirt of extra water, to get it to the consistency that I want. And then afterwards, you could actually break it into little pieces and put it in the freezer. So I typically save some trays from my frozen shrimp cubes, and you could use these trays to kind of put little lumps of this Masstick food in here. That also takes a bit of time. So for me, the total prep time was about 14 minutes to make about 20 or 22 bits of Masstick. And then afterwards, you could put your hand in a tank and essentially push it up against the glass, and it will stick there. And then the fish will kind of come up and feed on this Masstick food that is stuck to the glass. It typically for I guess a quarter inch by quarter inch piece of Masstick food that will typically last for about an hour or 2 hours. All right, so that's it on how to kind of prepare and store the food. Oh, I'll mention that in the freezer, I think you could keep it up to 4 or 5 weeks. So what I really like about this food is that when I was doing my research on this, it seems like it's a very good food for getting finicky fish to eat. I've spoken with people that got their copper and butterflies, which are pretty finicky to eat this stuff. Leopard wrasses typically take to this food pretty well. So you get it's pretty useful if you're trying to kind of entice a finicky fish to eat. I also like that the fish exhibit a very strong feeding response. As soon as I put that stuff in the tank, I see all of my fish kind of get excited, and they rush up towards it. My shrimp gets excited, my starfish get excited. My urchins actually like to eat it, which is actually not an entirely good thing. So if you have sea urchins in your tank, you want to put the Masstick far away from them, because if they get to it, then they will just totally surround it, and none of your other fish will be able to feed on the Masstick food. Finally, what I like about it is that kind of it allows fish to graze over time. So it's not just like a big meal where you're dumping lots of pellets or lots of shrimp, and they consume all the food within a couple of minutes. With the Masstick, you get to see your fish feeding for half an hour, an hour and a half, depending on the size of food that you add in. The cons The disadvantage of using this food is, one is you have to put your hand in the tank, which is a bit annoying. If you're feeding in the morning and you're wearing a shirt, then you have to like roll down your sleeves, take out your watch, and put your hand in the tank. Some people just don't like to get their hand in the tank, so that's a big disadvantage. Another big disadvantage for me is that if you look at the videos here, you'll see that there's only a few fish that are kind of dominating the Masstick. So the shy fish, the ones that are not as aggressive, are not gonna feed directly. Now, there's still like bits of Masstick that float around in the tank from the main fish feeding on it, and that could be gobbled up by some of your smaller fish or shyer fish, but they're not essentially getting their fair share, as if you were to kind of put a cube of mysis into the tank, and that cube will randomly disperse. Another disadvantage is that you can't automate the process of feeding the Masstick, right? You can't load it up in an automatic fish feeder and feed it when you're away. And another disadvantage for me is that it takes a long time to prepare. It's not like pellets or mysis where you're just ready to go. So that's it overall. I mean, I like it a little bit. I essentially have it in. I typically feed 2 times a day, and I feed frozen in the morning, and I have my auto feeder feed pellets at around 5 p.m. So I've been using the Masstick as a substitute to shrimp in the morning. So I use it every other day. I haven't fully made up my mind whether I'm gonna regularly include it in my feeding routine and actually buy additional Masstick. Okay, guys, that's it. That's my thought on the product. I mean, I think it's kind of an interesting product. I think it's useful to have if you want to feed some finicky fish, or just throw it in every now and then. But I'm not entirely sold on the product for feeding your fish every single day. All right, thanks for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.